right, this is our second attempt at recording this. The top 20 video game music of final bosses. Produced by Leenat, Longbow, Rudi, Prince, xenmas, Rasher, Steve, Chris, Claudio, and Syphilin. This is the most amount of votes we've had, the most people contributing. And it's probably the first time we had a vote on Discord to let people choose a topic. So let's do that. This is from Elden Ring, The Final Battle. All right, so after my second time hearing that today, my first opinion that wasn't recorded was I found it not super memorable. And I talked about how it's more of like a cinematic style than older video games that we tend to listen to, video game music that has a lot of, you know, when an NES track can only have 4 channels of sound, everything has to be memorable. When the track is only 58 seconds long, it needs to be really catchy. So a very cinematic track, like Chris is saying. Not super memorable, but resonates. I really like the Risky Boots point where you said, this feels a lot more heroic than your typical From Software theme. And I think a lot of From Software themes, when you get to the boss, it's this like heavy, depressing, like it's trying to scare you. It's more about the boss, whereas this kind of bum 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 bum, it actually feels more like this is about the hero and the hero's journey, as opposed to the boss. It feels like the culmination of the adventure, especially being the menu theme. It's the first theme you hear when you turn on the game. I mean, it does a lot of stuff, like it's got the taiko drums and it's got the big heavy horns. It's very much trying to sound like the trends of current orchestral trailer, you know, contemporary music. And then it has this like nice, very down part, which is what you would not normally expect to hear in a final boss theme, which is something that a lot of From Software games do. They can confront you, they can build you up so much, Buttercup, and then when you finally get to the final boss, like a boss or a final boss, you're expecting something big, and they can sometimes twist that and give you something very low and almost sad. There's a bit of like melancholy to it. This is not the same composer as previous From Software games. Interesting. I don't remember much of the music in this at all, but if I had to think about a lot of the music in previous From Software games, I'd say the most memorable are like the Firelink Shrine, all of the rest spaces, the hubs, you know, the Dark Souls 2 theme, in that sort of hub town. That's probably the best part of Dark Souls 2, was that little hub. It usually meant you were just starting your adventure, or had successfully done something and you were heading back to the hub. Yeah, the gameplay is the memorable part. The soundtrack is the backdrop, and I think it's. I think I was a little harsh on it the first time I recorded it. It is a very big, heroic. Bwam, bwam. It was very nice. All right, well, that was Elden Ring, the final battle. Next up, chosen by Longbow from Ace Combat Zero, Belkan War. This is 02543, composed by Keiki Kobayashi, Testukazu Nakanishi, Hiroshi Okubo, and Junichi Nakatsuru. Wow, that was a motherfucking build. When you think, if we had a bingo card for what are you going to hear on a final boss episode, final boss music episode, you'd think electric guitars, choir, symphony, probably time changes, long songs, multi-phases. You probably wouldn't think castanets, maracas. How about some Latin American percussion and flamenco guitar, man? No? What? Oh, why? Is it the final boss to Samba de Amigo? No, man, it's the final boss to Ace Combat Zero. What? And there's also that thing where you put it in your mouth and you go bang, 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 bang. That was fun.
Thank you very much. Our next track, selected by Rudi from Sora no Kiseki 3rd. It is Dreamy and Boisterous Holy Land, composed by Ryo Takeshita.
which looks like take a shit. But hey. To borrow a line from the Giant Bombcast, that was certainly the most boss music. Do you want the most notes? The most rhythm changes? The most instruments? That was crazy. I like that synthy organ really feels like a JRPG boss. I mean, at the end of a JRPG, you've got 99 of everything. Huge damage is being thrown back and forth. There's multi-phases. You know, it makes sense to just really throw it all out there. You've got not only people shredding on the guitar and shredding on the organ. You've got the double kick on the drum. Just flying through. There's so much being tossed to you. It feels like a torrential beam of energy. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 beams, perhaps, with some kind of a pentagram around it, and then 4 lightning bolts coming down, and then maybe like a purple piss rain, and then maybe the whole screen goes white. Just talking off the top of my head here. That's what it feels like, this music. It's like somebody just... It's like the fire hose has been opened. Are you ready for the return of the prince? This is from DMC number 5. Silver Bullet, composed by Kota. In brackets it says, with Nero, fuck you. you! That was really nice. I like that Devil May Cry's gone into this more like Euro DJ EDM festival kind of a feel. I really, really love the tone of the sounds they're making. They're like these really chunky kind of tuk, 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 tuk. They almost kind of sound like the ultimate evolution of what the NES started with, like those old kind of chip tunes. It's like they're just really big, and you can just kind of, you feel like you can grab the notes in your hand and club somebody in the skull with them, you know? Oh my god. Do we think any Prince song would make it on here without lyrics? Come on. This is nice. When I saw Devil May Cry, I'm like, who said that in the chat? Rudi. I'm not really a big fan of Devil May Cry. I find it pretty obnoxious. But I really like this tune. I thought, I was worried. I was worried it was going to be a worse kind of obnoxious. This is nice. This is really well composed and just, it is quite a banger. Like when you hear, it's from Devil May Cry, the modern one, it's a final boss theme, you go, oh no. It has dubstep elements. You're going, no! And that's actually pretty good. If you're into numbers, get this. Our last track was played at 1418, 1418. This next one is going to start, well, I'm starting to talk about it at 1848. Whoa. It is chosen by xenmas. It is from No More Heroes. It's called We Are Finally Cowboys, composed by Masafumi Takada and Jun Fukuda. a nice track. I really like the bass line. And they double it up with some of the drums. They've got that guitar just going, which I think you call an ostinato, which is a word that I say almost every week and always feel unsure that I'm saying the right word. That's a fun little track. It's like almost, it's. I think it works because it's kind of over the top and sort of comical in how repetitive everything is in it, and just. But I think it's not. It's not so stupid that it's. It's not so stupid that it's dumb. It's cleverly embracing idiocy. And I'm condescending enough to be ironic, but always too smug. Well, next up we have a track by Rasher, well, chosen by him. This is from Judgement. It is Penumbra, composed by Hidenori Shoji. That was really good. I find that the way the drums are never like a straight rock beat. The drums are kind of they're like trippy, and the kicks and the snares are not where you'd expect them to be. So it gives it this kind of like trip hoppy weaving kind of feel. And when you've got all those kind of like bass and synth going, and your brain is constantly thinking like, oh, where's that next kick gonna come in? Where's that snare gonna come in? And they do it not just a long weird loop of over one measure. It's got this sort of like 2 measure loop that changes, and it's just similar enough, and it kind of keeps you guessing, and Kind of gives me the feeling of like two martial artists that are, when they're close and they're sort of punching and like weaving, grabbing each other's arms. Sort of like when Keanu Reeves and Lawrence Fishburne are having the first training fight in the dojo. What a great track. I really wasn't expecting to like this as much as I did. So good. Especially because I don't remember a lot out of Judgment other than it having a pretty decent story. Never like as incredible as Yakuza 0, but strongly decent. They definitely have, a lot of the Yakuza games have really interesting boss themes though. They always go a little more synthy than I think they're going to go, which I think is a good choice. Why, next up, we have a choice from Steve in Tales of Destiny. Rebel Against Destiny, composed by Motoi Sakuraba and or Shinji Tamura. Got huge oppressive choirs. We've got crazy pedaling organ. We've got some heroicness and some horns. We got an orchestra. We got pounding percussion, all on a PS1. I feel like some of the choir stuff and the organ stuff you can hear in a lot of his work, and even some in Dark Souls, although it's such a different tone. I think this is a fantastic final boss theme where it really feels like the world is sort of shaking, like the power of your battle is just constantly like crushing, like it's being condensed into a little piece of boss crack. All right, we're going to have a bit of a palate cleanser here. This is chosen by Chris from Madness Project Nexus. The track is Funky Punch, composed by Lochner. Man, who would have thought that out of the at least 2, if not more, tracks that have had some dubstep sounds in them, they'd be some of my favorites. Like, they just really pound, man. These songs are bangers. Is there a difference between a song being a banger and a song that slaps? I don't know. I'm 38. But I would put money down that this is a banger and that it slaps. It's like a kind of a relaxed slap, you know? If you think about a place where you'd lay down and slap, I can think of several places. Really fun track. I love the beats. I love that like such a just really hard-hitting drums. I love the kick pattern. Yeah, killer kick patterns. I just love the drum beats in this. Wow. Just like so great where they put the rhythms on all these melodies. Just pulls you around. Badass. Next up, chosen by Claudio from Romancing Saga Minstrel Song. This is Decisive Battle, Sauron, composed by Kenji Ito. Wow, that was really, really nice. That was a I love when you get a JRPG on the PS2 or PS1, but it's influenced by the golden age of JRPGs on the Super Nintendo and probably the PS1 as well. When they just kind of give you everything you wanted from that era, but bigger sprites, more detail, or maybe some more polygons. But it's in that sense of like, this is what you thought it looked like back then, and now let's increase it. And a track like this feels like a final boss theme from a Super Nintendo JRPG theme, but just huge. I mean, there's a lot of double kick in this. Like, it sounds like there's a goddamn helicopter outside your window. Oh man, just like crazy guitar squeals, so much shredding all over the keyboard. I mean, it's orchestral, it's driving, it's just letting the musicians go crazy. You know, it's a final boss thing. With some damn heroic Steve Vai guitar. Next up, chosen by Syphilin from Guilty Gear X2. This is Midnight Carnival, composed by Daisuke Ishiwatari and Koichi Seyama. There's a lot of Japanese, especially final boss music, that sounds like hard rock, but this actually sounds like metal. Not heavy metal, but it sounds more like speed metal, kind of thrash metal. I think it does a good job with the guitar riffs and the intros, and it feels really full and it feels really ballsy. It feels like somebody that really does like that kind of music and can do a good job of bringing it to a video game. And it's got like some kind of cheesy melodies to it, but I think that works pretty well. I really like that key change. It does get a little kind of music-y up its own ass with that key change. Oh ho ho! Yes! How unexpected! Well, let's bring it down a little bit. Into a different world, into a dream world or a nightmare. This is chosen by leenat. That's the nightmare part. From Bloodborne, What a Dream. Gurman the First Hunter, composed by Ryan Amon, Tsukasa Saitoh, Michael Wandmacher, Yuka Kitamura, Cris Velasco, and Nobuyoshi Suzuki. Maybe just one of them. really, really beautiful track. When you think final boss theme, it has hardly any percussion. I think it's only strings and a little bit of maybe timpani. There's no choir. It kind of has, you know, if you're watching a movie and maybe the hero finds out at the end that they're being saved by their friend, and their friend is kind of presenting this information in a way that the hero doesn't want their friend to sacrifice themselves. Well, there's the choir, but there's no choice. And they're like, "No, Derek, don't do it. I've got to do it, Jimmy. Tell my dog I love her. No, Jimmy, no! Or Derek." And they're going down in like a flaming ship, lowering Arnold into the molten lava. It's so beautiful. So there's only strings and choir. Keeps it very sad. I love those build that it did a little earlier, where the strings have this like loose kind of this way they can like really run up and then stop and then just it's so majestic and so dark and so lonely. It's so beautiful but so sad. The night and the dream were long. Wow, that's gorgeous. From Bloodborne, we go to Paper Mario and the Thousand-Year Door, chosen by Longbow. This is Final Battle, composed by Yuka Tsujiyoko. Man, this track, it has a real kind of dirty, like dastardly feeling to the sounds, the melodies, the rhythms, just the way they I think it's a female, where she chooses to do, where they choose to do their the rhythms on the phrasing of it. It's like it's like it's just kind of sneaking and burrowing around like a gerbil. No, like a dirty plague rat has climbed up your ass and is chewing up your intestines. That's a terrible image. It's just like off-putting, kind of dirty but groovy rhythms. Everything is like dark and oppressive, and it's like it's seeping into you. But then it also has these cutesy little kind of retro chiptune sounding sounds that are in there, but they don't dominate. But they're just in there enough to make it feel like it's not something from, say, Dark Souls or a typical game. Beautiful. Chosen by Rudi from Ease 2. This is Termination by Yuzo Koshiro. Man, I love that Falcom sound. It's like the Genesis sounds, but bigger. A lot of double kick we're hearing today. And a lot of that kind of like... A lot of people going through their scales. It definitely sounds like a big final boss theme. Like Chris said, that swing, that kind of implied swing of... It's so nice. It makes it feel a little more fun, a little more heroic. Like things are bad, but you're having a good time while you're dealing with it. I think it's a good brush. It's a good brush of fresh air. Now for something completely different. It's a Prince pick. How'd you know? This is from Honey Pop 2 Double Date. The title is Outer Space. Composed by World of Wandag, a.k.a. Battling the Space, and You Be the Judge. H on hookers, maybe? He says, Ryan wanted something cinematic and boss battle-y, so I wrote this. Influenced by Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, World of Warcraft, Avengers, Final Fantasy, etc. You Be the Judge. into phase 2 of a 6-minute song. I feel like when you hear the song, you think, all right, it sounds like a pretty modern, cinematic, epic trailer music, boss battle music. And then you think, and it's for a puzzle game? Yeah. And not only a puzzle game, but a puzzle game that serves as the content for the sticky outer layer of whatever Honey Pop 2 is. Some kind of softcore hentai game. This is a censored version, what you're looking at. And it's a nice song. I mean, it would fit well in a lot of other games and a lot of other more serious games. Yeah, let's argue over the specifics of what is and what isn't hentai. Well, from Honey Pop 2, we go to Final Fantasy VIII, composed by Nobuo Uematsu, chosen by xenmas. This is The Extreme. Uematsu, like I was saying in the chat, he's like Radiohead, where when he plays something, it's sort of like instantly a little different than what you would expect. It's a little more creative, and it always just sort of transports me and feels very, very special. And he takes such care when he writes a passage for something. He really thinks about the arc of that organ run and where it's going to end and what other instruments are going to be there to support it. And he tells a story with every single second and every single passage. He just has, he's not just throwing things out there. And I think that's probably why he begrudgingly likes One Winged Angel, because he had said One Winged Angel was him taking a lot of different parts and just kind of shoving them all together. I think he thinks it's a bit embarrassing, that it sounds like a big kind of mishmash of a lot of different stuff. But it worked. It was kind of like when actually Tom York of Radiohead wrote a bunch of lines, threw them in a hat, mixed them all up, and pulled them out for climbing up the walls on OK Computer. Or John Lennon having a typewriter out and just every so often when he felt like it, going down and writing a line to I Am the Walrus. I think he's probably come around to it. I think just at first he was a bit embarrassed, like I was kind of a joke song that I just so happened to put as the final theme in the most popular Final Fantasy ever. And now I'm stuck with it. It's a fun track. Yeah, it's Mimi. That's what it is. He just didn't know it at the time. Cyflin has chosen from Wild Arms 2, Battle vs. Lord Blazer, composed by Michiko Naruke. And an interesting track, definitely for a final boss track. That's the most hopeful track we've heard so far. It's interesting to hear the trumpets and stuff, which give it a bit more of that kind of like Western, like cowboy Western feel that Wild Arms has. You see one of the characters wearing a poncho there. If I was the final boss and they started playing some of the stuff in this track, I'd be looking over at the composer like, excuse me, I'm having a final battle here. I'm supposed to be the final challenge. And you're playing music like, the heroes have won, it's time to save the day. The day has been saved. Look at the credits. Let's just laugh and smile and start heading home. They're going to have a parade for us. The final boss thinks, what am I? Is this some kind of a set piece? This actually feels like I could have been listening to this theme when I was fighting, what's his name? Rodan. I can barely remember their name in Elden Ring because they changed the boss fight so much to take away their hitbox, to take away the damage they were doing, to let you ride a horse. You summon all these people. We're done. Yeah, that's it. When you have the Japanese composers doing Western-y stuff, it's like if you asked a Western composer to make something sound Chinese and they go da 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 da, and like bang a gong and play that string thing.
They cut his bloody legs off.
All right, we have just a few more tracks. This one is from Leenat from Nier Replicant. Version 1 point, etc. This is Shadow Lord. Composed by Keiki Kobayashi. Man, I really love the Nier music. I was just taking a scroll through Keiichi Okaba's Wikipedia, and there were a lot of games worked on before I came to Nier. I can't tell if the Tekken music that he did, they always say like Ridge Racer PS1 version, Tekken PS1 version, Tekken 3 PS1. I don't know if he's just doing like a port of it and doing a rearrangement, or back then sometimes when a game would go to a different platform, the composers would not worry about making it even the same. They just kind of did their own thing. But it took a long time for him to get to the point where he was doing Nier, and I don't recognize a lot of the other stuff that he's working on, but I feel like Nier Automata is when his pretty unique voice in terms of the way he can make things kind of sound like epic, dramatic, but soft. I think Nier Automata is a hell of a soundtrack. I picked it as my favorite of the year, even over Persona 5 that year. But yeah, I just love what this guy does, and I'd like to check out more of his work. I think it fits what Nier is doing really well, because it kind of embraces the over drama, but it has an elegance to it, which I think Yoko Taro needs, because he's trying a lot of different things, and yeah, he's a weird guy, and I definitely don't agree with a lot of the choices he does in the games, and it can turn me off from even playing them sometimes. But I do like that it is something different, because there's a huge problem in, games, TV, movies, where people are so afraid to do anything outside the norm, and his stuff is very unique, whether it's him making you play the game many times over with a fresh perspective. And that can be a great idea, but can also be overdone. His like, sexualization of these characters, at least he is doing something different. And when you see a scene of his, and even just like the character designs, it's a Yoko Taro game. And I think this music really highlights that quite well. All right, chosen by Longbow from Destiny 2: The Witch Queen. This is The First Disciple, composed by Michael Salvatore and/or Sky Lewin. Nice track. When I saw that it was going to be a Destiny 2 piece, I thought, it's going to be probably fairly modern, contemporary, kind of generic. I think one thing they do to make it a little more musical is they use that waltz time, either 3/4 or 6/8. And also, like somebody had said, in the chat, that real kind of angry brass. The brass really has a lot of personality in terms of its tone, and just the phrasing of it is just like huge. And then mixed with that waltzy feel, it gives it a real kind of swagger to it. So a lot of personality to this Witch Queen boss. I don't know if the Witch Queen is supposed to have the swagger, or your character is supposed to feel like they have the swagger, but it's there. Next up, chose my Rudi. This is from Brandish 3. It's Exoskeleton, composed by Naoki Kaneda. Short loop. Man, when you see what they were working with on the visual side of things, and then what they can pull off on the Falcom chip, just those big synth sounds, works really well. They worked with, a meaty FM synth, but also just working, not trying to sound like anything it can't be, not trying to pretend that it's an orchestra, just shredding and having pounding drums, killer shredding synths. You can fire a lot of notes out. You can make them be big and impactful. This would be a great track for like a shoot 'em up or something. And then you see that it's for this RPG, which also at the time probably would have been ahead of its time being live action in this way. Great detail on that big sprite too. Big boss sprite. Beautiful stuff. All right, our last track in the top 20 is from Xenmas, from Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne. This is Final Battle, composed by Shoji Meguro, Kenichi Tsuchiya, and Toshiko Tasuki. Yeah, very nice groovy track to end it off on. I love how chunky and just big and meaty those low synthy tones are. Just creates so much to like. It just feels like you got a bunch of red plasma magma below you, just like a seeming river of magic groove. I really like the where it feels like you just can't even predict where that snare is going to be. It just like pushes and pulls. It's like really sort of trippy and wavy. It's like you're looking at something and seeing the heat waves go by. Pushes you forward, pulls you back. Very kind of trip hoppy, Cris style. Well, that was it for the top 20 final boss themes. If you're watching on YouTube, it really helps if you subscribe or like it or leave a comment. You know that. Everybody tells you. But it does help. Please help. Thank you to our contributors, Leenat, Longbow, Rudi, Prince, xenmas, Rasher, Steve, Chris, Claudio, and Syphlin. Now we're going to pick the topics we're going to vote on in the Discord to be our show for next week. Goodbye, YouTube.